Right now, get up to a $15 gift card after rebate when you purchase select Superstart batteries exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you along for the ride. We have a busy weekend on campus to recap. LSU baseball, they take 2 out of 3. LSU men's basketball fights tooth and nail, but ultimately succumbs to Florida on Saturday night in the PMAC in rather comfortable fashion for the Gators. That was a very interesting basketball game. And then the LSU women on the road at Kentucky on Saturday. They overcome a 14-point deficit, 12-point halftime deficit to get another victory. Kim Mulkey's 750th victory of her career. We're going to recap a little bit of all of it here on today's show. So get subscribed to the podcast if you have not already. Go ahead and like, share, follow me on social media. All of that is greatly appreciated as well on Twitter X at Musso Matthew. You can find me on Instagram at Matthew Musso1. There's, of course, Facebook. I'm everywhere. All right, without further delay, let's dive right in. We'll start with LSU baseball. Tigers take 2 out of 3 from Omaha, winning Friday night 4-2. Dropping game number 1 of a doubleheader on Saturday 5-4. Wasn't that one interesting? And then coming back in the nightcap on Saturday and walloping the Mavericks 12-1 to take the series and seemingly get back on track after that tough offensive performance for part of Friday and most of game number 1 on Saturday. There were a lot of interesting things to take away from this series. We started to see maybe a little bit of separation in the bullpen. Your starting rotation turned in another great weekend, 1, 2, and 3. I know there's a few questions that people have right now about Cade Anderson. I'm not even close to being there yet, but we can talk about it a little bit. And then there was, of course, the offensive lapse. They are kind of in the middle of the series, and that's really where I want to start. If you take this series and you look at it, Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, it's a very different. Each game tells a very different story, but it's the middle part of the whole that is most interesting. So if you look at Friday night, LSU early in that game was very productive offensively. They raced out to a 4-0 lead through 5 innings. They were taking advantage of the Omaha mistakes. We talked plenty about how that team will walk anything and everything under the sun, and they were doing that. And then you get into the 6th on Friday, and it kind of just disappeared. LSU got away from their plan. They took very out-of-character at-bats. But what you had was awesome performances from your young pitchers. Connor Bench, who's a veteran, started it off on Friday. But then you turned the ball over to Maverick Rizzi and Kason Evans, 2 freshmen in a 2-run ball game, and they did more than hold their own. They dominated, and that was awesome to see. We can come back to that a little bit later when we talk pitching. So you end up getting the win. But down the stretch of that game offensively, LSU had plenty of opportunities because Omaha kept giving them free passes and kept allowing guys on base, and LSU kept leaving the guys on base. They were chasing pitches out of the zone, striking out. Just very uncharacteristic from what we've grown to see, from a Jay Johnson offense so far in his time at LSU and up to that point this season from LSU's offense. But they get the win, and you're like, all right, tomorrow's a new day. You'll correct it. You do have a condensed schedule now, playing 2, but we'll see. Game number 2 of the series starts, and it was very clear that those problems were persisting. LSU left 6 men on base in the first 2 innings of the game on Saturday. First game on Saturday. And that is ultimately why you lost that baseball game. That is it. That is the end of that conversation. That's why you lost that game. You get 2 of those runs home, you win the game. 2 of them, you win the game. Instead, you left 6 guys on base. LSU constantly popped up and flew out on Saturday in game number 1, and it was not the day to be doing that at Alex Box Stadium on Saturday. Very, again, out of character at bats. I mean, you just look at your out distribution for LSU, and 17 flyouts, 6 strikeouts. 6 strikeouts overall, not that bad. The flyouts were the bigger issue for LSU. But again, when the strikeouts happened, were a problem because they were in key spots where you had runners on and you're trying to get things established. LSU was held hitless in that game for 7 2/3 innings, and that's inexcusable. Against a team like Omaha that has an ERA north of 9, probably north of 10, 11 now after LSU did what they did in game number 3, that just can't happen. And that's a problem. And it was concerning to see that in the middle of this series. Started in the 6th inning on Friday, going to the 8th inning in game number 1 Saturday. LSU was shut out, and they left 13 guys on base. And Jay Johnson talks all the time about they're going to leave more guys on base than your average team because of the way they play offense. And that's fine. You know what? I can accept that because you've seen it work plenty over his time at LSU. They do. They leave a lot of guys on base. They normally score a lot of runs. Like, your prime example of that is game number 3. LSU scored 12 runs on 13 hits. They left 9 guys on base. Okay, 9 guys is a lot of people to leave on base, but your offense functioned the way it was supposed to, so okay. So, yeah, I'll hear that argument, but it also doesn't make it okay. And the issue is when you're not scoring and you're leaving 13 guys on base, because that shows that something's going wrong here with you at the plate, whether it be approach, the plan, whatever. I don't really particularly love the word approach at the plate, but I like plan more. But something's not connecting. Something's not sinking in. And that's what you saw. And a large part of it was LSU was playing into the hands of a team that isn't very good. The wind is blowing in. It's cold. You cannot hit the ball in the air at the box when that's happening. It's a big yard. And this weekend was a pitcher's dream for that stadium. And LSU, you fly out 17 times, you're not going to have a lot of success. So what changed? Well, in short, the at-bats were better. Starting in that 9th inning. You got some different guys in there, some pinch hit, like Tanner Reeves leads off that inning with a single. Jake Brown follows with a double. But what changed? Well, they shortened up. They cut down on the strikeouts. They started getting on top of the baseball, driving it on the ground and the line drive. And that's how you're going to beat those conditions at the box. And it damn near led to an LSU comeback. And I think one of the perfect examples of that in that 9th inning was Jared Jones and Josh Pearson, those two at bats. I mean, you already have a run in when Jones steps up with the bases loaded and a chance to win the ball game if he can tie into one. But again, think of the conditions. In the first 2 pitches, he swung hard, trying to hit the grand slam, trying to win. He gets to 0-2, understanding he's going to get, breaking balls here. And he shortens up the swing, goes into his 2-strike approach, gets on top of the baseball. He's strong enough, drives it through the 6 hole, and drives in 2 more runs. That's a great at bat. Josh Pearson follows. He gets behind in the count, 2 strikes. He shortens up and just tries to drive the ball somewhere and does so to center field and pulls in another run on the sac fly. That's what changed, and it continued in the nightcap. And what you saw was LSU end up with 13 hits, 12 runs, and the key there is they drove in 10 of those 12 runs, which is, again, showing the change on offense. It's finding the grass now. And what that does with the 9th inning and then your win in game 2 in the nightcap does is it changes the tone of the weekend. That was an emphatic, dominant bounce back from LSU's offense, and it's exactly what you needed to see. And I'm not going to lie, you could see it coming a little bit in that ninth inning, that, okay, wait, here it is. And there were some things that helped. Stephen Milam, who's been off to a slow start, was 3 for 3 in that ball game Saturday night, and that's needed. And I'm excited to watch him as they face Nichols here on Monday night to see if that can continue. Jared Jones had a 3-hit night and drove in 5. That's Jared Jones being who he needs to be, who he's supposed to be for this offense to reach its high potential. That helps as well. But ultimately, the strikeouts were down. You only punched out 5 times, and you ended up with a lot more ground balls and line drives, shortened up, and played to the ballpark, and it worked. And that's just what LSU is going to have to do early in the season right now. You know, I hear a lot of people talk about the power numbers and should we be concerned and all of those things with the lack of LSU's power. They've hit 5 home runs now in 7 games. What gives? Well, remember the conversations we've had about the power on this team. It's not to the level that it has been a few seasons ago, but it's not bad. I still believe this team can get 95, 100 home runs. What's been the difference is the conditions you've been playing in are different than the last couple of seasons for LSU. It was chilly the last few years, but it was chilly with the south wind, which means it was blowing out. LSU's had 1 game at the box so far with a south wind. They hit 3 home runs that day. That's what turns the box into a launching pad, is the wind, when it's blowing out. And it hasn't been doing that. LSU's hit balls early in this season that on any other given day fly out of that ballpark. So the power's coming. But it's not going to be all throughout you're not going to have multiple 20 home run guys this year. It's going to have to be more throughout. Like, you're going to have Jake Brown get to 10, 12 home runs. Stephen Milam gets to 10, 12 home runs. Danny Dickinson, can he get to 12, 15 home runs? And then you have Jared Jones, and if you're starting to do that, you'll protect Jones better, and he'll start to hit it out of the park. He almost hit one out to right field this past weekend, but the wind knocked it down. Dickinson had one this weekend that would have been out had the wind not been blowing in. Tanner Reeves, the first swing he took in the nightcap was a shot to the opposite field, where if the wind's not blowing in, he's got a shot to get it out of the park. So you're seeing them make contact, that's worthy of power. The first hit LSU had this season was that triple by Chris Stanfield. And if the wind is not blowing in on opening day, that ball soars over the wall. He crushed it. So, I mean, there are opportunities for the power to come, and I still think that it will. So I'm not freaking out about that early yet either. But it was encouraging to finally see them in the 9th inning and then all of game number 3 start to play offense to the strength of that park. And you saw them manufacture runs and do everything that helped them in those conditions. So that was great. On the mound, we'll start with your rotation. They were awesome again. They were awesome again. You saw your starting rotation give up 2 earned runs. You saw 2 of them pitch into the 6th inning. You saw one of them, Anthony Ianson, get you through 6 innings. And then Chase Shores, in a huge spot for him, the first time he's ever been in that spot in his career, rubber match, go out there. We need you to take the ball and dominate and get us off to a good start so we can win this game. And he delivered exceptionally well. 5 shutout innings. You got him up over 80 pitches, which was huge in his second start. He punched out 7, held the velocity very well. His 84th pitch of the night, which was his final pitch, was 96 miles per hour, and it was a strikeout. I know people are worried about Cade Anderson. I'm not there yet. Cade Anderson was awesome for 5 innings on Friday. And then he lost command of the fastball, and the zone got away from him, and you ultimately had to pull him. Jay Johnson said after the game he wasn't planning on making a pitching change for at least 2 more innings. That it was going to be because Anderson was incredibly efficient. I mean, he was right where you wanted to be, 10, 12 pitches an inning through 5. The velo was down, but it started down. I didn't really think he lost it too much. And I'm also not really concerned about that yet either, because he's had to pitch in some tough conditions as well. weather-wise, it's been chilly, and it's kind of early in the season. I don't remember when Cade Anderson was starting in the midweek, and they kind of had like that 5-inning cap on him ever losing his velocity, it dipping. So it's going to be 75 when he pitches against Kansas State on Friday, assuming they keep the rotation the same. I don't know why they wouldn't at this point. He'll actually be able to work him into a lather. Let's wait and see how it looks there. But it was another 8-strikeout day for him. I thought he was very, very good. And it was a tough ending to what was a great day for Cade Anderson. And then, Anthony Ianson, he did it again. 6 innings, over 90 pitches, shutout ball. He did the thing where he was, and this is one thing you would like to see him improve on a little bit as we go forward. The pitch count was high after 2 innings, but then he settled in and got you deep into the game. See if that efficiency can kind of show up a little earlier for him in his next start. But they were great. Bullpen, you started to see some separation. You were able to get Maverick Rizzi and Kason Evans into a tight ball game with it on the line as freshmen in just their second appearances, and they delivered. That's awesome. Big confidence in them going forward. In the same vein, you saw Grant Fontenot get a huge opportunity in game number 2 of the series, scoreless, getting to start the 7th, and he hit the first 2 batters, one of them with 2 strikes, and he was promptly out of the game, and then that 7th inning got away from you, and you allowed 5 runs. Not saying Grant Fontenot never gets that opportunity again, but it would stand to reason he moves to the back of the line for that opportunity. You saw a pitcher pitch twice in one weekend. It was Connor Benj, back-to-back days. He came in to relieve Cade Anderson in that tough 6th inning. He came in to relieve Grant Fontenot in that 7th. It was much more efficient in the 6th on Friday than he was in the 7th. So we'll have to wait and see. That's a guy they want to kind of be one of their stoppers out of the bullpen. But is he capable of doing it 2 days in a row? We'll have to just continue to wait and see how that goes. They're going to continue to put him in that spot, and I'm okay with that. He's a veteran guy, and let's just see kind of how it goes. But I think you did start to see some separation. You look at a guy like Jacob Myers. Jacob Myers is fantastic from a stuff standpoint. The consistency in strikes has always been the issue, and you saw that Saturday night. He issued 4 free passes and a run came across. That can't happen out of the bullpen. So I'm not quite there yet with him. But what you need to see with all these arms, it's going to take the slightest, inconsistencies to create the separation because LSU is so talented and does have so many guys on this pitching staff. All in all, y'all, that was a really good weekend. The loss sucks, yes, but you're going to lose games in baseball, and you're going to lose non-conference games. Every single one of Jay Johnson's teams at LSU has lost non-conference games, and they always will. So you move on. It doesn't define your season. It was great to see the emphatic bounce back. That should give you confidence going forward. They play Nichols on Monday night, and you want to see everything that happened in game number 3 continue, and that would just boost even more confidence heading into your biggest week of the pre-conference and your biggest week of the season so far. All right, LSU hoops, real fast. Man, they got off to such a start there in that game in the second half of the first half, late in the first half, I should say. LSU finds themselves down 14 early in the game against Florida, and then they get a 22-2 run to take a 6-point lead into the halftime locker room. Robert Miller, freshman, dropped a dozen in the first half, was LSU's leading scorer. He took the game over. He was stretching the floor, shooting threes. He was awesome. And you go into the break up 6, and you're kind of feeling good, man. They've won 2 in a row. Is the momentum carrying over? The PMAC had some life in it. It's all the makings are kind of there for the upset, and then it's just like, oh yeah, wait, Florida's really good, and you're not. And ultimately, that's what happened. We talked about the 4-guard lineup and how that was going to be treacherous for LSU on the glass. It was. Florida out-rebounded LSU 48-33. 19 of those were offensive boards that led to 17 second-chance points. So as good as LSU's first-shot defense is, those second-chance points and the offensive rebounds continue to haunt this club, and they did once again. Robert Miller continued to be fine in the second half, ended up with 19 and 10, a double-double, so his late-season charge has been very good. But, y'all, Florida overcame a halftime deficit, a 22-2 run, and ended up winning this thing comfortably, 79-65. They took a 10-point lead in the second half. LSU closed it again. but just down the stretch, 5 minutes to about 2.5, Florida was awesome. 14-0 run, and that was the nail in LSU's coffin. But they competed hard. They looked like they wanted to be out there again. They left it all on the floor, and it just wasn't good enough. And that's been the story all year for this team. And that's why it's been so frustrating. They are good enough to compete and compete hard and stay in games. They are not good enough to get over the hump and win those games that they're competing in. And it's very frustrating and very disappointing, but it's where they are. But does that lead to, okay, you get a few more bodies in here, and yeah, the message that man's giving is good. Like, they're going along with it. They believe in it. We'll have to wait and see. And you'll get that answer more next year with all the NIL commitment and things of that nature that they've promised. And it'll be very interesting to see. Lastly, LSU women's hoops, a hat tip there. Kim Mulkey, win number 750 in her career. .862 winning percentage. LSU found themselves down 14 in the first half on the road to Kentucky. They were down 12 heading into the break, but they outscored the Wildcats by 17 in the third quarter to surge ahead and take the lead. Kentucky would make another run in the fourth, get it to a 1-point deficit. But Michaela Williams would hit her second triple of the game, part of 24 points for her. That came with 49.1 seconds left. And then the defense really showed up. Steal by Flau'jae Johnson started it for LSU. And the offensive rebounding and free throws carried them the rest of the way. They overcome a 10-plus point deficit in the second half for the second time this season, winning 65-58. The other time was against Washington in the pre-conference. So, shout out to them. They are still looking at a 2-loss record right now, 27-2, and they have plenty more basketball ahead of them. They also clinched the double bye in the SEC tournament with that win on Sunday evening. So great season as well here for the women. Yet again, just continuing under Kim Mulkey now, year 4 for her in Baton Rouge, and it's great to see. So a lot of winning and a tough loss for the men's hoops team. Round out a weekend over there on campus. That's going to wrap it up. Be sure to subscribe, share, follow on social media, and be here next time for more on LSU Daily.